Good morning, this is the podcast of Today Editorial from The Hindu. As we know, the Union Public Service Commission demand the in-depth understanding of issues. That is why no analysis, summary will work for UPSC preparation, so be careful and listen original content and try to comprehend the writer mindset. It will help you in many ways, like in paper 2, which is cast, and also for general studies 1 and 2 and 3. Please subscribe the channel for regular update and also like and share to your friends. Now today's editorial is going to start. Be ready without wasting the time. Disinformation is a cybersecurity needs to be protected from infodemics, to prevent the possibility of a breakdown, interruptions, and violence. Ashish Jaiman. Cybersecurity focuses on protecting and defending computer systems, networks, and our digital lives from disruption. Nefarious actors use attacks to compromise confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of IT systems for their benefit. Disinformation is, similarly, an attack and compromise of our cognitive being. Nation-state actors, ideological believers, violent extremists, and economically motivated enterprises manipulate the information ecosystem to create social discord, increase polarization, and in some cases, influence the outcome of an election. There is a lot of similarity in the strategies, tactics, and actions between cybersecurity and disinformation attacks. Cyber attacks are aimed at computer infrastructure, while disinformation exploits our inherent cognitive biases and logical fallacies. Cybersecurity attacks are executed using malware, viruses, trojans, botnets, and social engineering. Disinformation attacks use manipulated, miscontextualized, misappropriated information, deepfakes, and cheapfakes. Nefarious actors use both attacks in concert to create more havoc. Historically, the industry has treated these attacks independently, deployed different countermeasures, and even have separate teams working in silos to protect and defend against these attacks. The lack of coordination between teams leaves a huge gap that is exploited by malicious actors. Cognitive hacking. Cognitive hacking is a threat from disinformation and computational propaganda. This attack exploits psychological vulnerabilities, perpetuates biases, and eventually compromises logical and critical thinking, giving rise to cognitive dissonance. A cognitive hacking attack attempts to change the target audience's thoughts and actions, galvanize societies, and disrupt harmony using disinformation. It exploits cognitive biases and shapes people by perpetuating their prejudices. The goal is to manipulate the way people perceive reality. The storming of the U.S. Capitol by right-wing groups on January 6, 2021, is a prime example of the effects of cognitive hacking. The implications of cognitive hacking are more devastating than cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. The damage wrought by disinformation is challenging to repair. Revolutions throughout history have used cognitive hacking techniques to a significant effect to overthrow governments and change society. It is a key tactic to achieve major goals with limited means. For example, QAnon spread false information claiming that the U.S. 2020 presidential election was fraudulent, and conspiracy theorists, in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Ireland, Cyprus, and Belgium, burned down 5G towers because they believed it caused the novel coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 disinformation campaigns have prevented people from wearing masks, using potentially dangerous alternative cures, and not getting vaccinated, making it even more challenging to contain the virus. Spreading disinformation. Distributed denial of service, DDoS, is a well-coordinated cybersecurity attack achieved by flooding IT networks with superfluous requests to connect and overload the system to prevent legitimate requests being fulfilled. Similarly, a well-coordinated disinformation campaign fills broadcast and social channels with so much false information and noise, thus taking out the system's oxygen and drowning the truth. The advertisement-centric business modes and attention economy incentivize malicious actors to run a sophisticated disinformation campaign and fill the information channels with noise to drown the truth with unprecedented speed and scale. Disinformation is used for social engineering threats on a mass scale. Like phishing attacks, to compromise IT systems for data extraction, disinformation campaigns play on emotions, giving cybercriminals another feasible method for scams. A report, https://bit.ly/3q9tg3b, released by Neustar International Security Council, NISC, found 48% of cybersecurity professionals regard disinformation as threats, and of the remainder, 49% say that threat is very significant. 91% of the cybersecurity professionals surveyed called for stricter measures on the internet. Deepfakes add a whole new level of danger to disinformation campaigns. A few quality and highly targeted disinformation campaigns using deepfakes could widen the divides between peoples in democracies even more and cause unimaginable levels of chaos, with increased levels of violence, damage to property and lives. Lessons from cybersecurity. Cybersecurity experts have successfully understood and managed the threats posed by viruses, malware, and hackers. IT and Internet systems builders did not think of security till the first set of malicious actors began exploiting security vulnerabilities. The industry learned quickly and invested profoundly in security best practices, making cybersecurity a first design principle. It developed rigorous security frameworks, guidelines, standards, and best practices such as defense in-depth, threat modeling, secure development lifecycle, and red team blue team, self-attack to find vulnerabilities to fix them, to build cybersecurity resilience. ISACs, Information Sharing and Analysis Centers, and global knowledge base of security bugs, vulnerabilities, threats, adversarial tactics, and techniques are published to improve the security posture of IT systems. We can learn from decades of experience in the cybersecurity domain to defend, protect, and respond, and find effective and practical solutions to counter and intervene in computational propaganda and infodemics. We can develop disinformation defense systems by studying strategy and tactics to understand the identities of malicious actors, their activities and behaviors from the cybersecurity domain to mitigate disinformation threats. By treating disinformation as a cybersecurity threat, we can find effective countermeasures to cognitive hacking. Defense in-depth is an information assurance strategy that provides multiple, redundant defensive measures if a security control fails. For example, security firewalls are the first line of defense to fend off threats from external systems. Antivirus systems defend against attacks that got through the firewalls. Regular patching helps eliminate any vulnerabilities from the systems. Smart identity protections and education are essential so that users do not fall victim to social engineering attempts. We need a defense in-depth strategy for disinformation. The defense in-depth model identifies disinformation actors and removes them. Authenticity and provenance solutions can intervene before disinformation gets posted. If the disinformation still gets by, detection solutions using humans and artificial intelligence, internal and external fact-checking can label or remove the content. Today, the response to disinformation is in silos of each platform with little or no coordination. There is no consistent taxonomy, definitions, policy, norms, and response for disinformation campaigns and actors. This inconsistency enables perpetrators to push the boundaries and move around on platforms to achieve their nefarious goals. A mechanism like ISACs to share the identity, content, context, actions, and behaviors of actors and disinformation across platforms is needed. Information sharing will help disinformation countermeasures to scale better and respond quickly. Education is key. A critical component of cybersecurity is education. Technology industry, civil society, and the government should coordinate to make users aware of cyber threat vectors such as phishing, viruses, and malware. The industry with public-private partnerships must also invest in media literacy efforts to reach out to discerning public. Intervention with media education can make a big difference in understanding context, motivations, and challenging disinformation to reduce damage. The freedom of speech and the freedom of expression are protected rights in most democracies. Balancing the rights of speech with the dangers of disinformation is a challenge for policymakers and regulators. There are laws and regulations for cybersecurity criminals. More than 1,000 entities have signed the Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace, for stability and security in the information space. Similarly, 52 countries and international bodies have signed the Christchurch Call to Action to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online. The disinformation infodemic requires a concerted and coordinated effort by governments, businesses, non-governmental organizations, and other entities to create standards and implement defenses. Taking advantage of the frameworks, norms, and tactics that we have already created for cybersecurity is the optimum way to meet this threat. We must protect our society against these threats or face the real possibility of societal breakdown, business interruption, and violence in the streets. Ashish Javiman, a technologist and innovator, is the Director of Technology and Operations for the Customer Security and Trust Organization at Microsoft. Next article: origin and spread. Identifying the source of SARS-CoV-2 is important for containing fresh outbreaks. By concluding that a virus leak from a laboratory in China's Wuhan, where the SARS-CoV-2 virus first emerged, is extremely unlikely and did not require further study, a 17-member WHO team and its Chinese counterparts have put to rest conspiracy theories that emerged early during the pandemic. While many scientists had dismissed the lab origin theory, in mid-February 2020, a group of 27 prominent scientists from outside China strongly condemned conspiracy theories in a letter published in The Lancet. The group said scientists who had analyzed virus genome sequence data shared by China and multiple countries could overwhelmingly conclude that SARS-CoV-2, like emerging pathogens, had originated in wildlife. Even a year since the letter and after nearly 500,000 genome submissions to a public database, scientists have not found any sign of direct human influence. The WHO team's investigation now strongly suggests virus origin to a natural reservoir in bats, but unlikely to have been in Wuhan, which is miles from any natural bat habitat. The virus jumping directly from bats to humans is highly unlikely, and initial investigation too suggests the role of an intermediary host species. The team has not been able to confirm the intermediary host. While early data suggest that the virus could have been circulating in Wuhan for weeks before it was identified in the Chinese city, it asserts that there is no evidence of large outbreaks in Wuhan prior to December 2019. Chinese media reported in early 2020 based on unpublished government data of a Hubei resident infected with the novel virus in mid-November. Also, in a report in the New England Journal of Medicine, scientists from the China CDC found evidence of human-to-human transmission as early as mid-December 2019, which again suggests virus circulation weeks before it was identified in Wuhan. China officially confirmed human-to-human transmission only in mid-January. While the possibility of transmission via frozen food, a theory embraced by Chinese officials, has not been ruled out, the possibility of such a route appears unlikely as instances of live viruses on packaging have been rare and isolated. The WHO visit is just the beginning of a long endeavor to uncover the origin of the virus. It will succeed only when scientific investigation is allowed to follow its course without being politicized. As in the case of the SARS outbreak in the 2000s, China again failed to be truly transparent during the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak. It can partially undo the damage done by now being more open and cooperative so that future outbreaks of related coronaviruses can be identified and contained early, if not prevented.